came close. He said, slow it down and go frame by frame, and you'll see him fully extended. And then he do a Hollywood trick, try and step in like his body is close enough that he could have hit. And I did. I put it in my recorder and I taped and slowed it down with frame by frame and froze it. And you can see he's 2.5 feet away. Then there's some lines on the floor. You can tell he never even crossed the line to come close. So we started letting the facts be known. But yet now, he was a good actor. I like to see him act.
Okay.
I'll make some of that noise sometimes, not when I'm fighting for real though,
okay.
But around the house with my son. And we laugh about it, but he was a movie star. He wasn't a real champion.
Okay.
He never fought. Nobody can name any tournament or anyone that he defeated. Now, to be a champion, as people say, he's the world champion. He's the world's best champion. You know, it is. I say, well, wait a minute. To be a champion, you had to have fought. To be a champion, you had to have fought. And if you fought, you had to have won.
Yes.
To be a champion. How you going to claim to be a golf champion and you never competed against Snead and Woods and all the guys, you know? And
makes sense.
you may know how to play golf, but how you going to claim to be the world's best basketball player and you never went up against the guys, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's the same way it is in karate. You can know karate, but to claim to be the best, to be a champion, to be all this, you had to have fought the champions. To be the best, you got to beat the best. Well, that's the story with the Bruce Lee. And I defeated Chuck Norris at the same tournament, the Internationals. There was a lot of prejudice back in the 60s, back in the days, you know. They didn't want me to have the match. Actually, they was going to give it to him, and he threw up his hands like this. They had a meeting and came out and reversed it and gave the match to him. He wrote on his program to the guy that beat me, Vic,
wow.
You know, I didn't have anything to do with that.
Oh,
Chuck
wow.
was a real gentleman about it. His
Okay.
wife, she wrote on her program to the guy that beat my husband. Because
Oh.
everybody seen, you know, I had knocked him to the ground. He come in for a spinning back kick. I stepped in, boom, punch. In '68, there was a gentleman by the name of Joe Louis, not the black Joe Louis, the brown bomber,
Mm-hmm.
but Joe Louis there. And he had been winning a lot of tournaments, and I was the first one to beat him. And I defeated him to become the first world professional champion.
Oh,
That's
yes.
when we started
PKA.
winning the money, you know. So, and in 1969, there was a gentleman by the name of Mike Stone.
Oh, yes.
Mike Stone, he worked with Elvis Presley and all, and he had 91 straight victories. Never took a second or third place in his whole career. And I defeated Fred Wren to have an opportunity to go up against him, fight him. And we had never fought, but we were champions, East Coast, West Coast, and we knew we were going to have to fight eventually one day. And it came down to that. And he was so tough, he'd come in with a sweep, a ridge hand, send guys to the hospital, sling them around, beat them. You know,
oh, wow.
he was vicious, you know. And we tangled. I beat him.
Wow.
His only defeat comes to my hand. He had 91 straight victory. Never took
wow.
a second or third place. And I beat him for the light heavyweight championship of the world.
Incredible.
Reversing, doing the same technique to him that he was doing to everyone else. He had came in and hooked me and getting ready to do a sweep, and that ridge hand was coming. John Osaka was my main judo instructor. I was pretty heavy in judo.
Okay.
And I reversed it. I countered him, dropping low, swept him, and ridge hand him, sent him airborne. He came down on his head and shoulder and dislocated his shoulder.
Oh.
in the magazines they say he lost to Vic Moore because he was disqualified because he couldn't continue. But they won't say why and how
Wow. That is so
he couldn't continue, you
That's
know.
awesome.
But that's okay, you know. Everyone knew what happened that was there. But they were just so prejudiced, they just didn't want to give the blacks the credit. And in 1970, there was a gentleman by the name of Bill Superfoot Wallace that
Oh,
most
yeah.
people know, got the fastest feet in the world, clocked at 65 miles an hour. And he is one of our good buddies there, and I beat him for the USGA World Championship in 1970.
Wow.
And after defeating everybody, that's just some of the main names that most people in karate know.
Yes.
I retired from competition with Parker Shelton and Glenn Keeney, some of the other top fighters. And I formed the Traditional World Karate Association to come out with a standard for all karate people, because karate was going downhill so bad from these movies, the Kung Fu movies and the Bruce Lee movies. Everybody was opening up karate schools that wasn't qualified to even teach. They didn't really know karate. And I was telling my instructor, Dr. Robert Trias, we need to have a standard for everyone. Our Shorei people have a set of standards that they have to know for their rank, but yet we're letting these Taekwondo people and all these people come in and get in rank, and they don't know any katas, they don't know the different steps that they should know. So that's the reason I opened up the Traditional World Karate Association, to have a set of standards for all karate black belts and students. So that's part of my competition history, and I also had a chimpanzee that I trained
You trained a
and
monkey.
went to different tournaments to say, if I can teach a chimpanzee karate, why don't you guys teach your students karate? 'Cause it was some of the people
Wow.
says, you know, boy, I would like to see some of that. Here's some of the pictures that I have. This is Bruce Lee and I in the ring.
Oh, yes.
And I, as I said, beat him 5 out of 6 times.
Wow. Nice.
This is Chuck Norris and I. Back in the days, how Chuck looked when he was young and handsome. That's me when I was young and handsome.
Oh, wow.
You know, everybody said, "Oh, look at that afro." Yeah, but that's back in the days.
I used to remember here.
Hunter, you know something about back in the days. This is Joe Lewis and I. This was the first world professional championship. To have this picture mean that you have a picture of the first world professional karate tournament. And at your
I'll be looking to get one of those
event-
signed from you, sir.
at your event,
Lewis.
this is Mike Stone, who had 91 straight victory.
Wow.
Never took a second or third place. And as you see right here, he finally admitted that he lost to Vic Moore.
Wow.
He went for years and years saying that he'd never been defeated, and there's not a man alive that can beat him.
Uh-oh.
They kept nudging him. What about that Vic Moore? Well, he's the only one.
Well, that's great, Dr. Moore.
This is Bill Superfoot Wallace. He got the fastest feet in the world, clocked at 65 miles an hour. But there was some brothers that knew how to handle
Kick
this stuff, you know. But they never gave us the credit, you know. And you take people like from New York, Thomas LaPuppet, who was your compadre, you know, Thomas LaPuppet, and Artie Simmons over in Pennsylvania, Jimmy Jones up in Chicago, and myself, and Russ Perone out in Colorado, Steve Sanders, Muhammad, who's in Atlanta, Georgia, but used to be out in California. Steve Sanders just ran through everybody out there, but
Wow.
the magazine wouldn't write and put us in the magazine. You never see a black on the front cover of Black Belt magazine, right, Sensei?
That's correct.
This is Jim Harris and I. This was the first full contact karate tournament in the United States out in California. Joe Lewis and I, we introduced kickboxing on the Merv Griffin show up in New York.
Mark Griffin.
So you're looking at the person that started all this MMA stuff.
Wow.
and all. There's people claim to have started MMA, full contact and all that stuff in the 70s and this and that, you know, like 80s. We were on the Merv Griffin show in 1969 demonstrating what full contact is going to be about. I got some of those pictures too. So that's a little bit of my career, but there's a lot more.
Yes,
a lot more.
We'll be looking more forward to hearing from you. And right now, I'd like to bring in Hanshi Mario Arthur, and I'd like to know, sir, how long have you been practicing the martial arts?
Well, you know, the first thing, let me go back a little bit. I'm really impressed with Master Moore. You know, I'm going to touch something real quick. I mean, we're looking at the years that you spent practicing the martial art, and today you could sit here and have the opportunity to present and give an historical fact,
Yes.
which the rest of America is not even aware of. And you know what's really is how important this is. What's really, really sad is this is history. This is martial art history. And the thing is, folks do not really understand it and never had the opportunity to hear it on a first-hand basis. Because most people, I tell you, I got involved in martial in 1963. Okay? You know, back then, it wasn't any different. Okay? And it's not any different today. They don't want to see anybody of color, okay, that has any knowledge in any spectrum. And it's not just in martial art. I mean, let's look at history as a whole, right? We could look at discovery of electricity, discovery of electric light, iron, and so on, pharmaceutical, medicine, and so on. But I think what's really important is practitioner of martial art really need to understand martial art. And as you pointed out, there's two facets to martial art, actually three. You have those who do martial art because they want to keep busy, they want to do something and stay healthy. Then you have those who practice martial art because they really want to embody the spirit, the history, the philosophy. They want to bring it all home.
Yeah.
Okay? And then you have those because it's the fad of the month. Okay? It's actually the biggest thing going for this year.
Yes.
So we're going to get into it. And it did. It happened in the 70s. We had the movies.
Yeah.
You know, it's really good listening to you because I've said for years, people emulate Bruce Lee. And you know, let's go back to New York. You know, I grew up in New York and I spent time, and I know most of the fighters in New York. Very few in the West Coast. I remember going to Sunnyside Garden, okay, in Queens. I never seen Bruce Lee. I've never seen Bruce Lee did anything. Okay? But he was an actor. He was a great actor.
Great actor.
And that was it. That was it. Jackie Chan, great actor. But what tournament? You know, and we could look at down the line. But I think we need to focus on, and I'm going to honor this man's name, which is Thomas Carroll, a puppet.
Yes.
Okay, I worked with him for years.
Yes.
Back in the 70s, 1973, we started working together with the Metropolitan Amateur Athletic Union. Okay? He got me involved because we needed to get more people of color involved. Okay? And I could tell you, that was the beginning for me. Okay? I saw it, but there was no vehicle for us. We had no one pushing.
Let me interject something right there when you say Thomas LaPuppet. It just goes to me. When I used to go to New York to compete, I had to stay at his house because blacks couldn't go into the different hotels. He and Moses Powell and the guys would take me to certain restaurants because I couldn't go to just any restaurant. I come from Ohio, Cincinnati, up to New York to compete. But Thomas LaPuppet
Embrace you.
embraced me, take me in. And also when you says LaPuppet, you know, it just
It really is sad. You know, and I'll tell you, again, talking about LaPuppet, you know, years ago, we talked about putting Fred Hamilton.
Yeah.
Fred Hamilton. Okay, Major Leon Wallace. Okay, those are some of the people that today the kids do not know.
George Cofield.
George Cofield.
All New Yorkers.
Okay, so when you're talking about some of these people who paved the way, for what it is today,
Yes, sir.
and people just do not understand it. Sugar Crossan.
Robert Sugar Crossan.
Robert Sugar Crossan, my old buddy. We've known each other over 35 years.
He's here with us.
He's here with us, yes. One of the
So-
great martial artists.
So you have so many great martial artists, okay? And your former compadre, Johnny Pachivas, okay, right here in Florida.
Right here in
So what we're saying is there are some good people out there, both black and white, but the idea is the whites that were real martial artists, they understood and they knew it. And they're able to promote the differences, okay, as Master Trias did.
Yeah.
We don't have a Master Trias today, you know, and that's the sad thing about martial art. A lot of people are looking at how much money can we make. Back in those days, it was more of a brotherhood.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it was more of working together, just as much as, you know, you practice martial art, and I'll tell you, it does exist in other parts of the world. It does exist. Are we going to go back to it? I hope we do. I hope one day we do. I hope one day,
We're working on it.
with the information that you're sharing today, and with the information that the listeners are capturing, that we're able to make a difference.
Hope so.
This program would need more than a few hours for us to cover all of this. Just having the two of us here at the
Yes.
same time is really tragic. But I'm going to say this. We have the American Federation of Martial Art, which exists, which was created and founded by Soke Adolfo Eniver out of New York. It's been in existence since the early 80s. Okay? And the whole focus is the individuals that are out there practicing martial art that does not have a master. Okay, we could call the Japanese version a Ronin, okay, a person that doesn't have a master. This is why we exist. We exist to help those individuals. Okay, and that's what Soka Eniver have started.
He will be a guest on our show.
And we want to get people to know this. Just as much as Tom years ago wanted to do this. We want to get more faces, whether they were black, whether they were Hispanic, whether they were Chinese, Filipinos, whoever they are. There's a lot of history out there in martial art. People seem to think that martial art originated in Japan or in China somewhere, and that's it. That is not true. I just came back from Ethiopia, and we were just having that major discussion. It's been founded and proven that martial art originated in Africa. You heard it. Martial art originated in Africa. We could go back to the KwaZulu, okay? We could look at all the weapons that was used. We could look at all of the tribes that were created. Where do you think it all came from? Where did civilization started? I mean, we could argue this. We could argue this forever. But the idea is we need to look at today. We owe it, the three of us and many others, we owe it to do as much as what we can to change the image of martial art today. Stop looking at your kids getting the next belt. I think it's more about building the mental aspect of martial art.
Spirit, yes.
Because the martial art as a whole, the martial art revealed to us a path to oneness with the universe, a coordination of mind, body, and spirit to become one. If we could teach that to the kids, we will stop the bullying, we will stop all the crime, or at least control some of it. Educate. And most people think karate is about violence. No. And people mistake Taekwondo, which is what the Koreans are doing, and everything else we call it karate. There's a big difference. There's a big difference.
We will have to have that for another show. Unfortunately, our time is up. But again, I would like to thank my guest, Grandmaster Vic Moore.
And let them know about the program that we have tomorrow.
Well, we have a program, the International Martial Art Hall of Fame, which is bringing together some great martial artists from all over the world. That's Saturday, November the 15th here in Orlando, Florida. And also, I'd like to thank Hanshi Mario Arthur for being my guest, and look forward to the American Federation of Martial Arts and bringing other activities here and other martial arts program, as well as Grandmasters organization, the United...
Our Traditional World Karate Association.
The Traditional World Karate Association. And we're going to get together, continue to bring this message to you martial artists out there. Feel free to call, write us. You can get my email address. It's hurtyou2@aol.com, and we can have other divulgations about this. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much, sir.